All right, well, Arkansas, number 24, Texas A&M, this game in Arlington. Texas A&M is a 4-point favorite. The over-under I have is 29 combined quarterback rush attempts. Big game for that. Big game for that. If you're a fan of doing that in college football 25, like this is the game for you to watch because Taylor Green has had a minimum of 17 rushes in his 3 starts against FBS competition in Arkansas. Marcel Reed has had at least 12 of those in his 2 starts against FBS competition. Speaking of that, Mike Elko said that Connor Wigman is progressing. My guess, and again, this is coming out before injury reports, those coming out on Wednesday night make this really difficult when we record on Wednesday afternoons because sometimes there are things that we definitely would have talked about, and obviously we're not able to go back in time and do that, but just keep that in mind. I think we're going to see one more Marcel Reed start, and then A&M will kind of make a decision on this trial run. I think we are going to see a scenario in which Marcel Reed will get the opportunity to lead A&M, and if he can beat Arkansas, then I think he keeps the job. And I think Wigman becomes a really popular portal candidate at the end of the season. And if he doesn't win this game, Marcel Reed, then I think Wigman is the starter against Mizzou next week. And maybe that's an unpopular opinion. Maybe there are people that are telling me, Connor, you are way too in love with Connor Wigman. I fully get it. I've had to kind of take that one on the chin for some strong things I've said about him. But I just still come back to the belief that, like, we have not seen Marcel Reed against a good defense yet. And people are like, oh, he's the guy. They struggle to put away Bowling Green. And I'm sorry, but Florida doesn't get to count as your case to be a starting quarterback. It just doesn't. All right. So for me, like, to just bail on Connor Wigman when I had to watch Connor Wigman running against exotic blitzes that would have had Marcel's Reed, his brain in a pretzel, yeah, I get a little bit fired up. I'm like, we're going to compare operating against Florida to operating against Notre Dame with 8 months to prepare for Marcus Freeman and Al Golden. Like, what are we doing? Come on. But anyway, I'll save that for a different time. I do think Marcel Reed plays in this one. And that's not a bad opportunity for a guy that, like, look, I thought he was going to be third string coming into the year after what Jalen Henderson did last year. And then Jalen Henderson gets hurt in the bowl game. And then Marcel Reed steps in as a true freshman and looks really good against Oklahoma State and keeps them in that game, a game in which they had no business being in with all the opt-outs and scholarship. Like, it wasn't quite, I think it was really close to LSU 39 scholarship level. I can't remember what the exact number was for that game, but yeah, like a post Jimbo Fisher 30-day window, portal stuff, NFL entries, like all these different things. And Marcel Reed probably set the stage by playing well in that game. And Jalen Henderson was good down the stretch last year as well. So, like, this is a nice luxury that Mike Elko gets to have as a year one coach. So you can kind of do this. You don't necessarily have to worry, like, oh, if I lose to Arkansas, am I going to lose the locker room or something like that? But I think for Marcel Reed, Arkansas is his toughest test that he's faced so far, even in a building where A&M has just owned. I mean, I know Jerry Jones doesn't want to admit this, but, like, Jerry World is Aggie World, okay? That's what it's been since these two teams have started playing there a decade ago. And I think that even though A&M has just dominated this matchup since coming into the SEC, this is still going to be a tougher challenge for Marcel Reed than going into the swamp and getting 6 yards per carry without blinking. It just is. Arkansas's top 25, both in rushing yards per game allowed and rushing yards per carry allowed. And that's having already faced Ollie Gordon II and preseason first-team All-SEC selection Jarquez Hunter. Okay? They have faced good backs, and they have still looked the part up front. I think it's a bad matchup for A&M. I do. And while I could certainly see a world in which the A&M front forces Taylor Green into some of those mash-the-button decisions in which you're like, oh, my God, Taylor Green, that's like a bottom 10 Sports Center play. What in the world are you doing? You cannot do that on this field and get away with it. It just doesn't work like that. But maybe he will. I don't know. I think I still like the underdog Hogs. I do. And I say that with caution because obviously this game has been a house of horrors for Arkansas. One win against A&M since it joined the SEC. 6 of those last 9 losses that Arkansas has had in this matchup have been by 1 score. I mean, it's been a lot closer than what the overall number would suggest. I'm kind of surprised that the over-under is 52.5. I would like the under there. I'm going to go Arkansas to win this one outright, 24-21.
And this game is going to be so silly, isn't it?
I think so. I hope so.
You know, it's crazy because you could almost argue that You could almost argue that Mike Oko, a first-year head coach, is going to bring more of the adult atmosphere to this matchup than Q Freeze and Auburn did last week, because that was a silly game last week as well. But yeah, gosh, this is just a fascinating game. I think, like, kind of to your point, right? Like, yeah, I'm not out on Wigman, right? I'm not going to say he's better than Jaden Daniels or anything, but I think that at the end of the
Well,
day,
I
like,
don't know. Just think about that. Think about that. All right, just go back to the Miami game. Will go back to the Miami game.
listen, I was gaslighting the other quarterback on that side. They both got us in that game, brother. So no shame there. But yeah, point being, I get it. Like, you always like the new guy, but I do think, like, if they had Wigman, I would feel very confident picking Texas A&M here. I'm actually pretty fascinated to see, like, Landon Jackson versus the A&M offensive line. And Jalen Henderson, who, like you were talking about, like, just doesn't have a ton of reps in the offense. Or sorry,
Jalen
Marshall
Henderson's
Reed.
not playing in this one.
Duh,
Jalen Henderson.
Marshall Reed. My
Yeah.
bad. Against Marshall Reed, who, like, doesn't have a ton of reps in the offense. And so, like, I'm actually really fascinated with that one matchup, just because, like, as a pass rusher, we've seen, like, Jackson really make some impact plays. And, like, how are you going to deal with, like, kind of a unique player like that? Yeah. Point being, I mean, this sounds insane. It sounds insane, but gosh, it's going to be Bobby Petrino versus Mike Oko. I think I got to take Mike Oko, man. I like, this is one that it really truly is a pick 'em for me. But as I said, he really does kind of bring the adult atmosphere, right? Like, even though he's a rookie head coach, I trust his defense to be a little bit more gap sound. And I do, as much as I love Green, man. And boy, do I love Green. Like, maybe more than any non-Arkansas fan in America. That dude is going to make 3 to 4 ridiculous turnovers. And it's kind of like I said, it's like,
Turnover worthy plays for sure. I don't know if he's going to make 3 or 4 total turnovers, because, like, I think I don't think he's thrown more than 2 picks he hasn't thrown more than 2 picks in a game in a while, like in a long time.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing, right? Against Auburn, a turnover-worthy play is not a turnover. Against Texas A&M and Mike Elko, I think they have a little bit more pride on that side of the ball. Even the Notre Dame game, they kept it close, and again, make of that what you will. But yeah, I think that the amount of, like, this team kind of getting better, getting more gaps out. I trust their coaches, as wild as that is. I don't think that the Petrino Klein dip is that crazy. Like, I think Petrino's still better, don't get me wrong, but like I said, Wigman would make me feel way better about picking the Aggies, but I do think the Aggies are going to win. Yeah, like, let's call it like a 28-24.
So a push, that would be. That's just right on that line, right on that
yeah,
-4 line.
Yeah. I mean, we're picking different teams, you know. Like,
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't want to say it's going to be a blowout, but, like, this game easily could be if there are some bad turnovers. But, like, like I said, if if Reed is the goofiest version of Reed, I just don't think he could be Taylor Green. And I love Taylor Green, but this is the exact kind of team you don't want to see on defense. A boring gap sound. Nick Skirton is another guy. Scorton or Skirton?
Scorton, not Skirton.
Scorton. Yeah. Like, it's going to be another, like, pass rusher versus quarterback. Like, it's kind of like a mirror, right? But yeah, I weirdly feel like Oko is more of the adult in the room, and this team is going to make fewer mistakes.
Speaking of adults, this game is huge for Sam Pittman's future. Absolutely huge. If he wins this game, that path to get to 7 regular season wins looks really favorable. All of a sudden, it really would. Arkansas would be 4-1. They would have the Tennessee game coming up next week. You get an awesome atmosphere for that. Even if you lose that game, you still get that optimism, having beat 2 teams that have just had your number in recent memory in Auburn and Texas A&M. And then if you are trying to figure out, like, all right, what was the number? And the number that John Neighbors and I had kind of settled on for Arkansas coming into this year was like 7 wins. 7 wins in the regular season would kind of show, like, all right, that's a 3-win improvement. You've probably hit on that hire of Bobby Petrino. That means your defense is still progressing with Travis Williams. Like, you've done things right. If you look at the rest of the schedule, you'll see Mississippi State and Louisiana Tech on there. I'm going to count those as wins if we're sitting here today. Like, we're going to get to Mississippi State in a second here, but unless they discover something at the quarterback position in a post-Blake Shapen world, I'm going to count that as a win. You look at the rest of those games. They're all the other 5 games are against teams that are currently in the top 15. So preseason, those are the types of games that we'd be like, all right, no, Arkansas has no business winning. But 4 of those games will be at home, and then the one that's on the road is at Mizzou. Arkansas-Mizzou would be a really interesting matchup right now. I'm just saying. It would be a real. So, like, you in theory would just have to win 1 of those 5 games against a team that's currently in the top 15, and again with 4 of those being at home. I'm just saying the path to get to 7 wins And for Sam Pittman to get to 2025 opens up a lot more. And I realize there are Arkansas fans listening to this going, oh, God, that would be worst case scenario because we still don't think Sam Pittman's a particularly good coach. And they have a different impression of Sam Pittman than we do as people that don't have a dog in the fight. And my dog in the fight is liking Sam Pittman and wanting that guy to live a really good life. Of course, it's a little bit different to talk about his future from me compared to what it is for an Arkansas fan. But I just thought that's context that's worth remembering in a matchup that Arkansas has historically struggled mightily in.
I mean, here's the question. If they win this game, are they ranked? They got 3 votes this week. Okay.
Yeah, I think they're probably just on the outside looking in, but A&M is sitting there at the top in the top 25. You had the loss to Oklahoma State, a game in which Arkansas should have won that game. And I'm not saying they win the game 10 times out of 10 if they play again.
We can't use that verbiage because that's like Brian Kelly talk. You can't do that.
And I should say, other stuff. I should say, if they play 10 times, they win the game the next 9 times.
Exactly.
That's the way it's phrased. But at the same time, they're probably close. It would. I think they would have to like win pretty convincingly against A&M to get into the top 25. But it's at least a conversation that we're having and a matchup that doesn't feel that lopsided. And of course, for Arkansas fans, you're probably thinking to yourself, this is usually when we blow a game that we're supposed to win. And this is just like classic one-score loss to A&M. And that's how this is going to play out. And this is going to be the last little window of relevancy from a national standpoint. But who knows? Crazier things have happened.
You know what? This is a pick'em game. I don't objectively care. I'm going to go with my heart here. I'm changing my pick because now that I've seen that I actually do think Arkansas gets ranked here. And think about this. The amount of teams that didn't start the year ranked became ranked and then fired their coach, probably pretty low. It would take like a weird, I can't even imagine that, right?
You'd have to stay ranked for
right. But I'm thinking about like how many teams started the season unranked, became ranked, and then ended up firing their coach. Because like I point to a dozen teams that started off ranked and just got worse and worse and worse and ended up unranked, or they started off ranked and then became unranked and then got ranked again. Like to take your team from being as horrible as they were last year, if you win a ranked game on the road, I don't know, man. Yeah, I would rather root for Taylor Green this weekend. I think I'll actually be doing that. I'm going to go ahead and say, I think I'm going to go right with you and your scoreline prediction. It's like, did you have them covering though?
I'm winning. I have Arkansas winning outright. So yeah.
Yes, you have them winning outright. Yeah. So I'm right there with you, man. I think it'll be a close game either way. But why would I pick a quarterback that I don't have anything invested in? Whatever. None of this matters. I'm like, let's go for chaos and go Taylor Green franchise game against this defense. Because at the end of the day, that's the funniest and most fun outcome. Because like if you don't like this Arkansas staff and you're not an Arkansas fan, like if you're an Arkansas fan, you have your own perspective. You understand this way better than I do. But if it's Sam Pittman, Bobby Petrino, like Travis Williams, like this is such a cool team that I want to root for. Whatever, let's do it.
I just hope we don't see a Taylor Green failed hurdle. I want a successful hurdle. Don't get it twisted. I want to see a 6'6" guy try and outleap an entire defense, but I want him to clear the hurdle. It makes me terrified when he gets up there and you don't know what's going to happen. It could all of a sudden be like a Garrett Schrader helicopter situation with a guy that big. You just don't know. It just scares me. I'm not quite a parent watching Taylor Green out there, but like, oh no, we don't need to see that. Only clean hurdles for Taylor Green moving forward. That's a simple request.
Remember the Taylor Green guarantee. Every time you watch Taylor Green, you're going to see something you've never seen before in a football game.
Like baseball, Will. Baseball.